What's up? I hope everybody is having a great day. Sorry about that. Forgot to mute my channel. Okay, there is some sound and movement coming from the court. Hopefully they're ready to get started. But you never know with this trial because they pretend like they're ready to go and then they're not. Well, come on, StreamYard. Come on, computer. I don't know why I keep losing my cursor. I probably should have rebooted my computer before we started today.
School day.
It was?
Aida was actually, in fact, at school on that day.
Yes, sir.
Okay, there we go.
And her school was Buena Vista.
Correct.
And that's very close to the residence.
It is. Yes, sir. If you were driving, it would probably be due to get there.
And we ID walked to show the location of the clocks at mid-afternoon, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, you mentioned you had somewhat of a familiarity with that residence because of an earlier investigation, something about harassment and or stalking. Now, you know that no convictions came out of those allegations.
Correct.
Your interview with Bradley Post was on October the 19th, 2021, right?
Yes, sir.
And that was at the Law Enforcement Center.
It was.
Did you speak to him on October 13th, 2021 at Canebrake?
I did not speak with him the day of the incident. No, sir.
Okay. Had you met him prior to October the 13th, 2021?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
No? Okay. Was Bradley Post interviewed on the 13th?
He was.
And we've been providing an interview that he did with the coroner's office. I think Tracy King was present. Is that the interview?
I don't believe it was Tracy King. I believe it was a member of the coroner's office, and it was another investigator. I don't believe it was Investigator King.
Okay, different investigator then. But it was the coroner who did the interview on that day?
He was involved in the interview. He was in there with an investigator. Yes, sir.
If you watched, the coroner really did most, probably 90% of questioning.
Yes, sir. He asked a lot of questions. Yes, sir.
Now, the coroner is not employed by the Green County Sheriff's Office, is he?
He's not.
That's a separate office.
Yes.
The coroners are not tasked with investigating a potential crime, are they?
That's not their primary. No, sir.
So the primary concern is determine cause and manner of death and provide necessary information to family members and things like that?
Yes, sir. Locate a next of kin. Yes, sir.
So Bradley Post was a suspect on that day, right? Just like anybody who would be a close fiance or spouse or something like that. That's just a natural suspect.
He was someone that we definitely wanted to talk to.
But he wasn't interviewed by Greenville County Sheriff's Office investigator on that date, was he?
Not by anyone from the homicide unit. No, sir.
And the buccal swab was collected from him on what date?
I believe it was that day, the 13th.
And was Lieutenant Parcel's phone taken on that date?
No, sir.
When was Lieutenant Parcel's phone taken?
It was not.
It was not taken.
No, sir.
A buccal swab was taken from her, though, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that was on October the 15th of 2021?
Yes, sir. The 15th.
What was the reason then for taking the buccal swab?
So we could have something to compare and to, trying to think of the word, exclusions. Obviously, obviously Miss Tina lived there, so we knew that her DNA was going to be all over things in the house.
Okay. And so the buckle swab was taken October 15, 2021 at the Canebrake house?
No, sir. When I met with Tina to get her buccal swab, it was not at the Cambridge house.
Where was it?
It was at a friend's house.
Okay, but you did meet with her and Bradley Post on October 15th at the Canebrake house?
I did, yes, sir.
Okay. Now, Bradley Post's phone was not collected by law enforcement on October 13th of 2021, is that correct?
That's correct.
And are you aware now from your investigation, by looking at the body cameras of other officers, that he was deleting photographs from his phone while waiting for law enforcement to arrive?
I'm not aware of that, no, sir.
Yeah. Did you watch all the body cameras?
Oh, I believe I did.
Okay, so you don't remember that, him saying that?
I don't recall that, no, sir.
But he certainly had the phone from the incident date until October 19th of 2021 and had every opportunity to delete, manipulate his phone in any way. Okay, right?
I know that he had possession of his phone until the 19th, yes, sir.
Okay, now, on October 15th of 2021, you spoke with Bradley Post at the Canebrake residence,
Yes, sir.
and you mentioned Christina Parcel was also there.
Yes, sir.
And what you spoke to Bradley Post on that day?
I did.
Was your conversation with him recorded?
I don't believe it was, no, sir.
And at that time, Bradley Post asked you whether Ms. Parcells had been wearing her engagement ring, right?
He had brought it up, yes, sir.
Okay, so
He had asked about the ring.
I'm sorry.
He asked about the ring, yes, sir.
Okay, so presumably he didn't. If he had to ask you if she was wearing it, he didn't know.
Correct.
Okay. And he asked for the ring back.
I don't remember if he asked for the ring back. I know that he just wanted to know if she had it, if she was currently wearing it.
And he told you at that time about the clone that he had of Christina Parcell's phone, did he not?
I don't know if he told me about it then, but I know he told me about it on the 19th when I interviewed him at the law enforcement center.
Okay. Um,
I'm sorry, but if you loved her, man, let her be buried with your ring on her finger. Wait, do they allow that still? I think somebody told me once they don't let you do that anymore because of grave robbers and stuff. I don't know. Maybe it's different state to state. I'm gonna Google that.
And
Yep.
I'm going to hand you what's been marked as Defense Exhibit number 60 for identification purposes only. Can you
Yes, sir.
recognize what it's in? What the contents of that?
Yes, sir. This is one of my supplemental reports.
Okay, and actually, if you look through, it's actually, I believe, all of your supplemental reports.
Yeah, you can bury your family.
Yes, sir. It looks to be, yes, sir.
Okay, and if you could you look at your entry on October 15th, see if there's anything there that refreshes your memory about whether or not he told you about the
Good morning,
clone
Mr.
phone
Cubs.
on October 15th?
Happy Valentine's Day.
Okay. Yes, sir. He did.
And was that the first you had heard about this clone phone?
Yes, sir.
Did you seize it on October the 15th?
I did not.
Did you ever seize it?
I seized it on the 19th.
Now, your investigation also led you to Foothills Veterinarian on October the 18th of 2021, correct?
Yes, sir.
And on that date, you spoke with people um, at this facility where Ms. Parcel had worked? Is that
Correct. Yes, sir.
right? And is that where you learned that she had been working part-time
Yes, sir.
and that she had not worked in some 3 weeks since September the 23rd, 2021?
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you some questions about the October 19th interview with Mr. Post. Where did that interview take place?
At the law enforcement center in our interview room.
There was another investigator in the room with you?
Yes, sir. That was when Investigator King was in there with me.
And did you seize Mr. Post's phone at that time?
Yes, sir.
And that's the phone that we could see when you're watching the recording of that, the phone that he has out on the table in front of him?
Yes, sir.
When did you take the phone from him?
During that interview.
Was it at the end after the camera was taken off?
Yes, sir. It was near the end of the interview. Yes, sir.
Okay. And you also followed him to his car and took possession of the clone phone, correct?
I did.
So he knew to bring it with him on that day, or had you asked him to bring it with him, or how did it happen to be in his possession? Do you remember?
I don't remember if on the 15th when he told me about it, I asked him to bring it or not, or if he just brought it on his own, assuming I may would like to look at it.
Okay. But that was the phone then that mirrored everything that was being done on Ms. Parcel's phone, correct?
Yes, sir.
And prior to your meeting with Bradley Post, you did get search warrants for his phone, for the clone phone, and also for a laptop that he had of Parcel's in his possession, right?
Yes, sir.
And then you gave Post's phone and these items to someone else with the Greenville County Sheriff's Office,
I did.
and that was Charlie Cunningham.
Yes, sir.
While those phones were being extracted, was Post allowed to leave the sheriff's office?
Yes, sir. He left.
And he went to his home,
Yes, sir. That's where the laptop was.
and the officers went and got that phone.
His attorney came with him and he went inside, grabbed the laptop and brought it back out to me. That's all. That's the only thing I needed from the house.
Now, there's been testimony in the case that on October the 19th of 2021, John Mello was taken into emergency protective custody. Is that correct?
I believe so. Yes, sir.
Did you participate in that?
No, sir.
Were other officers with Greenville County Sheriff's Office participating in that?
Not that I know of.
So it wasn't the sheriff's office who did that?
The EPC, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what officers did it.
Okay, but it was the sheriff's office, right? Wasn't Dan Bevel the one who was leading that investigation?
I know he was leading an investigation. Yes, sir.
So you weren't consulted about that prior to them going out there?
I remember being told that she was being EPC, placed in emergency protective custody.
Now we heard testimony yesterday from, maybe been the day before, I don't remember, but from a man named Michael Manigal, or Manigal, I'm not sure how it's pronounced. How did you come across his name?
From Investigator Bevel.
I need more than that.
Now, you had an interview with Lieutenant Parcel on October the 13th of 2021,
I did.
and that was recorded, correct?
Yes, sir.
And as lead investigator of the case, obviously you're just trying to get all the information, so you asked some very broad and open questions to try to find out as much as you could, correct?
That's correct.
And one of the questions you asked at the 20-minute mark of the interview, you asked Ms. Parcel about where everybody stayed in the house. And is it true that she told you that Aida's room was being used as a playroom and that she slept in Christina's bed?
I don't specifically recall that, but obviously I recorded the interview, so if that's what it states, then that'd be correct.
And do you recall that at the 23:45 mark, she told you that Bradley Post was at the house every day?
Hearsay, Your Honor.
It's just asking about the two things. First, prior inconsistent statement, and also it just goes to
It's a prior inconsistent statement of Tina Parcel. not
Yes.
now.
Tina Parcel.
I'm not sustaining the objection.
Now, you've already testified that you spent a great deal of time on October 13th, or that the sheriff's office spent a great deal of time canvassing the neighborhood to learn if anyone had cameras or if anyone had seen anyone suspicious. Isn't that right?
Yes, sir.
Did you handle any of that, or was that up to the uniform officers and other officers? to handle?
It was mostly other investigators. Yes, sir.
And obviously, this was very important, correct? Because at this time, you didn't have you didn't know who had done this, so you're trying to gather all the information that you can.
That's right.
And so officers would be looking for information, whether anyone had seen someone suspicious or knew the neighborhood, whether they could identify that person.
Yes, sir.
And if an officer had found someone in that position, as lead investigator, you would have been informed about that, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you would have done a follow-up interview with that person?
If someone had come to me and said that someone needs to be spoken to, is that?
Well, if an officer came to you and said, listen, we have somebody at, 105 Canebrake who says they saw a person's face and thinks they could identify that person, you would have been.
I would have. Yes, sir.
And as you develop suspects, you would have gone to that person with a photo lineup to see if they could identify the suspect?
Yes, sir.
And that never happened, did it?
It did not.
So you never went to anyone in Canebrake with a lineup, including Brad Post or Alex Fields or Zach Hughes, is that correct?
That's correct.
And that's because no one had ever said that they had seen a face of the person on the bicycle.
Yes, sir.
So what led you all to go to Donna Gorman's house in October of 2024, over 3 years after the incident?
We went there because as we were reviewing the case, preparing for this, we had realized that no one had ever shown her a picture of a bicycle. So we wanted to take that picture up there and let her see it and ask her if that's who she remembers seeing.
And she had been spoken to on October the 13th, had she not?
Yes, sir.
Riley Stokes?
Yes, sir. It was Investigator Stokes.
And Riley Stokes never came to you and said, listen, we found somebody who can identify the person on the bicycle, right?
That's correct.
And so when you went, well, let me ask you this. During those 3 years, between October of 2021 and October of 2024, Zach Hughes' picture had been shown on the news and the newspaper and other places, social media, numerous times. Isn't that right?
Yes, sir.
And in that picture that's shown in the media, he looks quite similar to how he looks now, right? With a full head of hair and a beard.
I believe so. Yes, sir.
In October 13th of 2021, Zach didn't even have facial hair, did he?
I don't remember if he had facial hair.
Do you remember seeing the trail camera photos?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so that was 2 days before, and then you saw Zach Hughes a couple days, well, about a week later at his house, right?
Yes, sir.
And he was clean shaven on that day?
I believe he was. Yes.
And October 28th of 2024, is that when Ms. Gorman said she saw the face of the person on the bicycle?
Yes, sir.
Did she tell you she could identify the guy on the bike?
Sir?
That time, in October 24, she told you she saw the face of the guy on the bike. Did she tell you that she could identify the person?
She said that she believes she would know him if she saw him again.
Really? You didn't put that in your report, did you?
I may not have, no, sir.
I'm sorry?
I don't believe I did.
And you can, feel free, your report's in front of you, but.
You don't have to write down every word they say and put it in your report.
No, sir, I didn't put that in there.
And you would agree that identification of a person in a case like that is very significant, is it not?
Yes, sir.
Did you show her a photo lineup?
I did not.
You did mark in your report that she told you that she would not be able, or she would be able to say it was not Bradley Post on the bike, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now your theory is that Zach drove the morning of October 13th from the Mountain House, which we've heard testimony is about an hour away from Cambridge. And in the summary that you provided, you say that he turned his phone off so he couldn't be tracked at 7:45. So if Zach Hughes left the house at 7:45, there's no way that Zach Hughes could have been there at 8 to 8:15 to be seen by Ms. Gorman, is there?
No, I didn't say that he turned his phone off. There's no activity on his phone.
Okay, no activity. Okay. How many ring cameras and surveillance cameras do y'all have that showed the guy in the bicycle?
From specific locations, I know that we have three. And there was one of the locations has multiple cameras.
Okay. And the guy in the bicycle is not picked up by any cameras at 8 or 8:15, is he?
No, sir.
And that is a good hour to hour and 15 minutes before the person is seen entering Cambridge, right? The 122 Cambridge.
Yes, sir.
How close is Miss Gorman's home to 122 Cambridge?
It's fairly close.
Like,
Across the street and over a couple
so
houses.
on a bike, would it be less than a 5-minute ride, would you say?
From Miss Gorman's house to 122? Yes, sir.
Okay. And the person on the bicycle was not wearing a hoodie, was he?
It didn't appear that there was a hoodie.
On November the 9th of 2021, you met with Tina Parcel for the purpose of collecting some items from her that she had found at the Cambridge residence. Isn't that right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. And one of those items was a blue USB thumb drive that she had found in Christina Parcel's room. Is that right?
I don't remember where she said she found it, but I believe she did bring me a thumb drive.
Did y'all examine that thumb drive?
Yes, sir.
Did you yourself or did other officers? You know?
I believe I did it.
I want to ask you a few questions related to the harassment investigation. And so you're aware that one of the documents in the packages that were mailed was an advertisement for an escort site, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you are aware that Christina Parcel did have a past that.
Objection, Your Honor. Sustained.
Your Honor, this was brought up by the state. They're the ones who introduced this evidence, and they're.
Wonderful. Now we're gonna have a freaking forever long sidebar. No, I think the state proved that that was made up.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you. All right, objection.
Okay. It didn't last forever.
Your Honor, what is brought up by the state is that they were mailed a photo which has an
Oh, dang, they excused the jury and yeah, now they're gonna, why can't they let us listen to that? I don't understand. Yeah, they did bring up that they were mailed photos that were made to look as if they came from an escort service website. But that's the point. They were made to look as if they came from there, but they did not. And then when the URL was checked, it didn't exist. And then the defense attorney got up there and asked every cop that was asked about the pictures. The defense attorney asked them, could that have been a real website at one time? Do you know if it was or not? I don't know. Could it have been a real website? Yes, it could have. Just because it could have doesn't mean that it was. So there is no proof that she was ever an escort. So now the defense is trying to get it in that she was an escort, which has no bearing on the fact that she was unalived. Has no bearing on that at all. You can't blame the victim, whether they were a good or bad person in your opinion or not, has no bearing on the fact that somebody unalived her. That does not matter. And that defense attorney is dancing around. He wants to get those child Pedialyte pictures mentioned in this case so bad. He wants the jury to know so bad that Bradley Post did inappropriate things with that child. Again, has no bearing on the unaliving unless it would have been a motive. Yeah. But if that had been a motive, that would make the defense's case worse. Well, no, it might not. I still don't think that would make it a justifiable homicide, especially since he's not the kid's dad. John Mello is. So he would still be guilty of conspiracy. And I really want to know why John Mello is not in jail. Come on, y'all, get through this quick. I don't understand why they won't let us listen. I think they're just so terrified that something's going to get leaked to the jury that they don't want the public. This must have been in his orders along with the 30-minute delay. It's the only thing I can figure because they don't usually do this. Once they send the jury out, they broadcast whatever the discussion is. Or stream. I guess broadcast. I'm still on. I'm an old lady. I guess it's not broadcast anymore, is it? Stream. Just because, what should I do for member badges? Alita has food. RA has courthouses. Like different color courthouses. was thinking ball of yarn, but it's not a craft channel. That might confuse people. I am always sitting here playing with yarn. I swear they cannot do anything quickly in this trial. You know, this defense attorney knows he's not allowed to bring stuff up, and he just keeps trying. And he knows, like, he knows that, oh, yeah, little TVs. I don't even know how the badge thing works. I don't know if they give you little emojis to pick from, or if you have to go find them yourself, or what. I have no idea. But the defense has got to know that, I mean, how many deputies or investigators or whoever yesterday said different fonts and different places on the picture? Like, that, they weren't just saying that for fun. Like, the prosecutor pointed that out every single picture, to the point I was getting sick of hearing it. He said that on purpose so that the jury could put it together. And at first, like we even talked about this yesterday, at first it wasn't really clear that it was fake. And then after he said it 50 times, you got it. Like, oh, they weren't really from an escort website. They faked the whole thing. And finally he said when he was going through like I think it was when he was going through the WhatsApp messages. I can't remember. At one point, though, we finally get to where we saw that there was a picture, actual photograph that was cut and pasted onto like a Word document or something. I forgot exactly when that happened, but that was after all of the pictures were described with the different fonts and the different placement of the URL and stuff. So it took a while to put it together, but they finally put it together that it wasn't real. And so now the defense attorney stands up and is like, well, you know, she had a background or a history or whatever. He's just being obtuse on purpose. Yeah, this is the strangest murder for hire case ever. Because usually the person that gets hired takes the plea, and then the person that hired is the one that's on the trial, the big trial is about. This one, the other guy's not even in jail yet. I don't know if he's going to be in jail at all. He's just out minding his own business. Crazy. This is the weirdest thing in the world. And I keep saying that.
Okay.
My
Okay, I mean,
blabbers are gassed.
let's
I
get
don't
started.
understand.
Finish up with asking you a couple of questions about the WhatsApp messages that you testified about at great length yesterday. And you testified about how you collected and put into a binder all of the WhatsApp messages between Zachary Hughes and John Mello. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And you said it was a rather large binder of text messages once you got those all.
It was a lot of messages, yes.
Isn't it true that the overwhelming majority of those messages come after the middle of April when Ida Mello was taken away from John Mello and returned to the States to be with his mother?
I don't know if the majority of them or not. I'd have to look at the book again to refresh my memory on the dates.
Okay. And you talked a lot about interpretations about different messages and what you believe they meant. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And I would like to show you one of the messages of
There you go, just because.
State's Exhibit number 186.
You called it.
Okay. All right, are you able to read that?
I could read that, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So this is against State's Exhibit 186, and I would just want to point your attention to the one that's the second message on the left on that page. And I'm not going to ask you to try to decipher everything about that, but in that message, we see on the first line, we see the name Ida, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then at the end of that line, you see the word doom. Isn't that right?
Yes.
So one interpretation of that message could be, and do you remember the date of that?
Could you please place it back up there? The 13th, October 13th.
And one interpretation of that message could be that John Mello believed that his daughter, now being returned to the States to live with Christina Parcel, meant that she is doomed.
I think there's way too many words in there for me to say that. I will agree that those two words are in there.
Thank you. No further questions.
All right, you read the rest of the
Murder.
Yes, Your Honor, a couple questions. Mr. Moore asked you about the coroner's assistance in this particular case.
Yes, sir.
Do they respond to all homicide investigations?
They do.
And sometimes do they assist y'all in various duties?
They do.
And don't they have their independent investigative authority under statute as well?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Morgan discussed the clone phone that Brad Post had. All right, so explain to this jury Christina Parcel's phones that she had.
So the one we refer to as the clone phone, that's a phone that Mr. Post kept that he basically signed into her Apple using her Apple ID and password when he says cloned. So everything that she does on that phone is not cloned. So he'd be able to see the stuff typically that Apple backs up. Like if you restored your phone from iCloud, emails, contacts, certain text messages and phone calls. That's how that phone was set up.
And he also had Life 360 on her as well.
Yes, he had the Life 360 app, and she was a part of his group. They could see each other's locations.
And did you review the downloads of the phones of Christina Parcel?
Yes, sir.
Did you review? Viewed all of them.
Yes, sir.
All right. In any of those phones, is there any communication with Zach Hughes?
No, sir.
Is there any email, text message, WhatsApp, Signal, whatever, any kind of application that you saw, any conversations with
No, sir.
anything related to Zach Hughes?
No, sir.
All right, they asked you about Donna Gorman.
Yes.
And so when did Riley Stokes speak to Donna Gorman?
I believe it was the day of the incident, the 13th.
And at that time, had y'all located, or did y'all have possession of the photos of a suspect leaving on a bicycle at Cambridge neighborhood?
We knew of the footage, but we weren't able to get possession of that until the following day.
And then Master Deputy Wolf testified that he went back on the 19th and spoke to her.
Yes.
And you recall what his testimony was? Are you aware that he showed her a photo of a bike?
I don't recall if he showed her a photo of the bike or not. I don't believe so.
Okay. And so, and then 3 years later, are you working with the Solicitor's Office on preparing this case?
I am.
And did you make a decision that you needed to talk to Donna Gorman?
Yes.
And you went out there and talked to her. Did you take down what she told you in a report?
Yes, sir.
And did you show her a copy of the individual on a bike?
Yes, sir.
Did you ever show her any photos of Zach Hughes?
I did not.
They asked you about the timeline on Zach Hughes' phone, and they said from 7:42 to 11:34, there was no activity on the phone.
That's right.
But you know that at 7:42, 7:42 he unlocked and closed the phone.
Yes, sir.
Now, can he do that in his car?
He can.
No further questions, John.
All right, recross. Just a few follow-up questions. What is Life 360?
Life 360 is an application that you can download on your smartphone, and you can invite people to join your circle. You see each other's locations.
So it's just sharing your location with other persons?
Yes.
Is there anything else significant to that? I'm just not aware of Life 360, so I just.
That's the extent of what I know about it,
Okay.
just locations.
So there's no way to share information, text, file sharing, anything like that through Life 360, is there?
Not that I'm aware of.
So the clone phone, again, that you talked about, the way that was cloned was just through sharing Apple ID, right?
Yes, sir.
And Bradley Post wouldn't give you that Apple ID, would
He didn't initially.
Hey, dude, what's up?
So you said Investigator Wolf went back and spoke to Donna Gorman also?
Yes, sir.
When was that?
I don't remember the exact date, but it was after Investigator Stokes.
Okay, so before you met with Brad Post on the 19th, you think?
I don't recall. It was close to that time.
Within a week or so of the incident?
Yes, I'd say that it's
So neither Riley Stokes nor Investigator Wolf came back and said, we have a person here who says they saw the face of the person on the bike who thinks they can identify.
that's right.
So nobody ever went out there because she never told you she could to show her a photo lineup, right?
That's right.
Nothing further. Thank you.
Any reread?
Correct. No, Your Honor.
Okay, you may step down. Thank you, sir.
Your Honor, the state would call Dr. Claire Rose.
Oh, is that something me?
place your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand. Do solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Claire Rose, C-L-A-R-E. Sorry, C-L-A-I-R-E, and the last name spelled R-O-S-E.
Dr. Rose, good morning.
Morning.
Can I actually just scoot up just a
Oh,
little
I'm
bit?
sorry.
You pull the microphone a little bit closer, just so the jury
So
can hear.
nervous she can't spell her own name.
Dr. Rose, could you tell the jury where you're employed and what you do for them
Sure.
currently?
So I'm currently employed at the Greenville County Medical Examiner's Office, and I'm one of the medical examiners there.
And what kinds of things are part of your duties as a medical examiner with the sheriff's office?
As a medical examiner, I perform autopsies on deceased individuals to determine the cause and manner of
Hope
death.
they're deceased.
Could you talk a little bit about your education and background that led you into taking this role?
Sure. So I did my undergrad at the George Washington University, where I received a degree in biological sciences. Following that, I did a 4 years of medical school at the Medical University of the Americas. Following medical school, I in clinical pathology at the University of Knoxville, the University of Tennessee Medical Center in Knoxville, Tennessee. Following residency, I did 1 year of fellowship training in forensic pathology at the Milwaukee County Medical Examiner's Office in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
And how long have you been a medical examiner for the sheriff's office?
I started working here in August of 2021, so about 4 years now.
Okay. So you were in that role in October of 2021?
Yes.
And to get in that role in October of 2021, you spoke to your education, but did you undergo specialized training specifically for the purpose of conducting autopsy?
Yes, so after I completed my residency training, I took a qualifying examination and became board certified in anatomic pathology. Then after I finished my fellowship training, I took another qualifying examination and became board certified in forensic pathology.
And approximately how many autopsies have you conducted since starting your role with the sheriff's office?
I have done approximately 1,500 autopsies.
At this time, the state would move to qualify Dr. Rose as an expert in forensic pathology.
No objection.
All right, without objection. He is qualified as an expert.
Ladies and gentlemen, a person, as I've said with other experts, normally a person cannot give opinion testimony, and when a person testifies, they must testify as to what they either saw or they heard or they sensed by smell. However, there is an exception when someone is qualified because of education or experience, and they are permitted to give their opinion in certain areas if the court qualifies them this way, and this witness will be qualified in the area of forensic pathology to give an opinion testimony in this area. However, that does not mean that you must accept the opinion, but it is evidence for you to use in any way you see fit and give it the weight and credibility that you believe is appropriate. Continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, Dr. Rose, could you go through with the jury generally what your process is when you're conducting an autopsy from the start of your analysis to going through the steps that you take?
Sure. So first off, an autopsy is a specialized procedure that we perform on deceased individuals, again, to determine the cause and manner of death. And an autopsy consists basically of two parts, an external examination and an internal examination. So first we start with the external examination, which consists of examining the body as is presented to us. So as I'm examining the whole body, I'm taking notes through note-taking and photographs and documenting any clothing that's on the body, any personal effects on the body, any medical intervention that may be on the body, just the general characteristics of the individual, such as their hair color, their eye color, their weight, etc. And then also I'm also looking for any signs of disease or injury. So once that initial examination is complete, then I will remove all that clothing, all the personal effects, all the medical examination. I will clean the body, and then I will re-examine the body again, the full body, looking again for any signs of disease or injury. So that's the external examination. So once that is complete, I move on to the internal examination. And that means opening up the body, taking out all of the organs, and then looking at each organ individually, again, looking for any signs of disease or injury.
And were you tasked with conducting the autopsy on Christina Parcel for this case?
Yes, I was.
And in going through the steps that you just went through, the external and internal examination, are you documenting your findings as you're going through each of those?
Yes, I'm documenting what findings through notes and photographs.
Do you assign each case a unique number to know what you're referencing?
Yes, I do.
For hindsight?
Mhm.
So also in conducting your autopsy, do you put together a diagram or a picture representation of your findings of injuries?
Yes, I do.
Speaking generally as to your external examination of Ms. Parcel, well, let's back up before that. Before you begin your autopsy, are you apprised of general circumstances and the nature of how an individual is found and brought to you before you conduct your autopsy to give you some directive of where to go from there?
Yes, so in this particular case, when I arrived to work, I was made aware of Ms. Parcel.
I would object to hearsay. She's going to try that statement to someone that's told.
I can rephrase, Your Honor.
Sustain the objection.
Just generally,
Yes,
you're apprised of those
Yes, I
circumstances?
am.
So, speaking to your external examination of Ms. Parcel, what jumped out at you as you were going through there to mark of significance in your report and in your finding?
So I found that there were 35 sharp force injuries to Ms. Parcel.
Okay. Did you reflect those in your diagram that you put together for purposes of reporting what you found?
Yes, I did.
I'm going to show you what's marked as State's Exhibit 192. I'm going to show you State's 192.
Yes.
Is that the diagram that you put together?
Yes, this is the diagram I created.
Okay. Your Honor, this time the state moves into evidence, State's 192.
No objection.
Objection number 192.
Dr. Rose, speaking to how you received the body before you start conducting your autopsy, are there protections put in place to preserve what might potentially be collected as evidence at the time of the autopsy and maybe even down the road?
Sure. So the body is placed in a body bag and sealed, preventing from anyone getting into the bag. Also, handbags are also placed around both of the hands to preserve any evidence that may be present.
Okay. But otherwise, the body is brought to you as is from the time it's found.
Yes.
That's important to preserve for any findings that you may make or anyone afterwards. Is that
Yes.
right? And while you're conducting this autopsy, is there a forensic technician with the sheriff's office with you to collect evidence for purposes of the case?
Yes, there was one forensic technician present during the autopsy of this person.
Okay. I want to go through with you some findings that you made on State's Exhibit 192 as it related to Ms. Parcel. Let's start. This first page here. Starting with the top. You identified Ms. Parcel on this document,
Yes.
and then you make a note there. Could you explain to the jury what the difference is between a stab wound and an incise wound?
Sure. So first I'll just say what a sharp force injury is. So a sharp force injury is an injury caused by a pointed or sharp-edged object. Examples of this include a knife, which is the most common object that we see during our work, but it also may include other objects such as scissors, a fork, screwdriver, basically anything that has a sharp or pointed edge. Then we sharp force injuries, if it's a knife, then we have either a stab wound or an incise wound. And now a stab wound is a wound that is deeper than its length on the skin. And an incise wound is a wound that is its length is longer on the skin than it is deeper. And then so here in this diagram, the shaded oval areas indicate the stab wounds, and partially shaded areas indicate the incise wounds.
So would it be fair to say, when you say stab wound, that's what most people, when they commonplace think of the word stab, is a stab wound. And an incise wound is more of, say, slice?
Yes.
And approximately how many sharp force wounds were located on Ms. Parcel's body as it relates to her torso and her arms?
So to her torso and her arms, there were a total of 9 sharp force injuries, and I can quickly just go through
Sure.
each of them. So starting with the stab wounds, Ms. Parcel had 1 stab wound to the top of her shoulder and 1 stab wound to the left side of her upper chest. Both of these wounds went through the skin and penetrated the underlining soft tissue. Then you have another stab wound to the left breast. This wound went through the skin, the underlining soft tissue, and penetrated the chest cavity and superficially penetrated the left lung. Then we have the 4th stab wound, which is to the left side of the mid-back. This wound went through the skin, the underlining tissue, and just penetrated the chest cavity without injuring the left lung. So those are all the stab wounds. And then we have, well, on this one, you can't see all of the incise wounds, but you have 4 inside. Yeah, here we go. So here you see 5 incise wounds. So you have 2 incise wounds to the right upper arm, 1 incise wound to the posterior right forearm, 1 incise wound to the left upper arm, and then 1 incised wound to the posterior left pinky.
I'm going to show you the second page here. Dr. Rose, as to Ms. Parcel's head and neck, how many sharp force injuries were identified in those areas?
So Ms. Parcel had a total of 26 sharp wounds and 19 incised wounds. And I can quickly go through all of those too, if you would like. Starting with the incised wounds, so she had, as I said, a total of 19 incised wounds to various locations to her scalp, to the right ear, the areas in front of the ear, the areas behind the ear, both cheeks, and to the right side of the interior neck. And again, these wounds just went through the skin and superficially penetrated the underlining soft tissue. Now we have 7 stab wounds to the neck area. We have 1 stab wound to the left side of the posterior neck, and that wound just went through the skin and the deep underlining soft tissue. And then we have a total of 6 stab wounds to the right side of the neck, and these wounds went through the skin, the underlining soft tissue and musculature of the neck, and then perforated 2 major blood vessels that supply blood to the carotid artery and the right internal jugular vein.
As to the injuries that affected the carotid and jugular arteries, could those be fatal once treated?
Yes, those would have caused significant amount of bleeding.
And you're finding specific to these areas, the locations of the wounds. Are there more wounds on the left or the right side of Ms. Parcel's head and neck?
Majority of the wounds are concentrated to her right side.
And speaking to the how the location of these wounds and the number and significant areas, pointing you to the stab wounds on the right side of Ms. Parcel's neck here, what would you say was, when you're determining the cause and the manner of Ms. Parcel's death, which wounds brought the most attention to you? Which were the most significant in your analysis of making that determination?
The most significant stab wounds were the ones to the right side of the neck. The group of 6, well, 5, and then 1 you can't see. But it's on the kind of, if you move the sheet a little bit down, you will see 1 stab wounds to the right side. So the group of those 6, the 6 stab wounds are the most significant ones.
Dr. Rose, could you explain to the jury what blunt force trauma is?
So blunt force trauma is just injury to the body that's caused from the body impacting an object or the body impacting an object.
Did you observe findings of blunt force trauma as it relates to Ms. Parcel?
Yes, I did.
What were your significant findings there?
So Ms. Parcel had contusions or bruises to the left side of her face, her anterior neck, and 1 contusion to her left knee. She also had tiny abrasions or scrapes to her right cheek, her neck, and her left upper extremity. She also had 2 small lacerations or tears in the skin to the right side of her forehead and to her left eyebrow. Additionally, she also had hemorrhage within her scalp and hemorrhage within the left temporalis muscle, which is just the muscle that sits just underneath the left side of the scalp.
To the findings of sharp force injuries with relation to Ms. Parcel, are you able to make any substantial findings as to the type of object used or specifics related to that object?
So the appearance of all of the shock force injuries are consistent with a knife being used.
But past that, how specific can you get into making conclusions as to details of the knife, I suppose?
So just on the appearance of Ms. Parcel's wounds, I can't further characterize the type of knife.
And in conducting your autopsy, you didn't find any evidence that would aid you in further making a conclusion towards that effect?
No.
Is toxicology part of the autopsy process?
Yes, it is.
What is toxicology for the juries?
So during the autopsy procedure, I may take samples. For example, I may take blood to run toxicology just to see if there's any drugs in her system that may have contributed to the individual's death.
Were there any findings on the end of toxicology significant in your determination of finding cause and manner of death?
No.
Were there any findings as related to illicit drugs in Ms. Parcel's system?
No.
Finally, Dr. Rose, what was your conclusion as to the
Sharp force injuries, and the manner of death was homicide.
Dr. Rose, just bringing your attention back quickly to the object that might have been used to cause these sharp force injuries. Did you make any findings as it related to what happened in the process of these injuries being inflicted as it relates to that object? The tip broke off, or the knife found in her system, or differences in the wounds to that effect?
Can you repeat the question?
So in trying to make a finding or looking for findings as it relates to the object that may have been used in inflicting these wounds, were you able to find any evidence of differences in the wounds that a different object might have been used, or something happened to the object in the course of inflicting these injuries?
So at the time of the autopsy, I did not find any sharp, and then based on the appearances of the wounds, it is most consistent with the knife being used, and that is all that I can say.
I have no further questions for you. Thank you.
Dr. Rose, when did you start? You testified you started in August of 2021.
Correct.
Do you remember what day in August of 2021?
I do not.
Okay, that's okay. You conducted this autopsy on October the 14th of 2021?
That is correct.
So at the time you conducted this autopsy, you had done a job for just about 2 months, right?
Correct.
You were asked about toxicology. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And isn't it true that the toxicology showed that Christina Parcel had amphetamine in her system? Isn't that true?
Correct.
And isn't that a controlled substance?
Yes, it's a stimulant. Yes.
And it is.
Isn't it
also
true?
Prescribed medication too. So
You talked about the sharp force injuries that you discovered during the autopsy. And isn't it true you talked about incised injuries versus stab wounds, right?
Yes.
And isn't it true that in your report you used the word superficial or the adjective superficial prior to many of the times you referenced incised injuries? Isn't that true?
Yes.
And you testified that these incised injuries were longer, much longer than they are deeper. Is that
Yes.
correct? In fact, in your autopsy report, is it true that you didn't even calculate whatever the depth was of the incised injuries?
I mean, it's very difficult because they're so superficial.
So
It's-
superficial.
yes.
Vast majority of the what you call the sharp force injuries you discovered were incised wounds. Isn't that true?
That is true.
And in other words, those are superficial injuries according to your own words. Isn't that true?
Yes.
oh yeah, I know. But I'm just saying the defense is trying to make it seem like she was on some kind of illicit drug.
Is it true that you
What is his job?
calculated that Christina Parcel weighed 163 pounds? Is that right?
I believe that is correct. Yes.
And she was wearing acrylic.
What happened to the sound?
What color were they?
Let me double check. Yes, they were red. Correct.
Big deal. Yeah, she may have been. That's just, I was saying they need to clarify that. So if they don't clarify it and they got people on the jury that will know that there are amphetamines that are prescription, then they're going to think that. I don't know if I trust the prosecution to get up there and say, this isn't the greatest prosecutor in the world.
Thank you.
We're sharing a mind again, dude.
That's right. Can you read it?
Yes, Your Honor, briefly. Dr. Rose, speaking specifically to the amphetamines that Mr. Mormon brought up, were the amphetamine findings in the toxicology consistent with the prescribed amount?
Yes,
Amphetamines, is that the active chemical in, say, Adderall?
yes.
Oh, he did.
And he spoke a lot as to the incise wounds and stab wounds found on Miss Parcel. Just as to the right side of her neck, how many stab wounds were there?
There were 6 stab wounds to the right side of the neck.
Thank you, Dr. Rose. I have nothing further to.
Just briefly, and Dr. Rose,
Okay,
yes,
you brought it home. You said Adderall.
Prescription. Isn't it also true that it's possible to get illicit drugs in the same quantities as prescription drugs? Isn't that true?
Sure.
Nothing else.
Like you say. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Well, yeah, that's good too. I don't know. They would have had to subpoena her medical records to get that. And I don't know if they would have had a good enough reason to subpoena her medical records. They probably would have for the custody case, but not for this. What? Is it morning break? And you didn't bother to tell us again. You just went right to the fire alarm. Hey, Carla. Do you know this case? Because we have a minute. Because I'm assuming they went on break. They go on breaks and morning breaks, lunch breaks. Don't say anything. It just happens. They break. Okay. Just because can help me out if I misspeak. Because I keep saying that I'm gonna start taking just because with me everywhere to follow behind me and restate everything I say because I will say something and totally muddle it up and then he will repeat what I said eloquently and it will be the exact nature of what I meant to say. Because this prosecutor is stupid. That's why. That's why. Okay. So, this lady has very poor taste in men. Here, let me make me bigger. She was married and divorced twice by the time she was 24. She, I think, was 41 at the time of her death. She had an affair with a married man, and they had a child together. He left his family for her, and I forgot how long they were together, like 5 years. And then they broke up, and then they had this big, no, not even 5 years. Because the little girl was 3 when she started dating the other old man. Who was like 30 years, close to 30 years older than her. So the ex took the daughter to Italy. And I don't know if he was planning on staying in Italy or if he just took her to visit Italy. But then she had her fiance actually was a witness in the trial. He said that she gave up custody. Other people say no, they had an agreement. He had custody, she had visitation. But then when he left the country with her, then she wanted custody back. So there was this big custody battle going on, and her ex was sending messages to this guy that is on trial now to harass his ex. He told him where she lived, her address, phone number, all personal stuff, so he could harass her. And he sent envelopes of nude pictures of her with doing things with male anatomy in the picture to her current fiance and the two people that they knew, people in the neighborhood. And the envelopes to them included a list of addresses to other people that were going to receive these envelopes of pictures of her. And they sent one to the guardian ad litem on the custody case so that this woman would think, and they cut and paste it onto this ad for an escort service with the URL for the website, because they wanted the guardian ad litem to think that she was an escort because he's trying to get sole custody of his daughter. So I don't know. There's not been a connection yet to why he actually unalived her. Because he was supposed. So far, all we have proof of as far as his connection to the ex's name is John Mello, and the only connection we have to John Mello is the messages saying to harass her. There's nothing that says to unalive her. I need that connection. Like, I believe he did it. There's surveillance camera of him going into her house and leaving on the bike that was then later caught by a traffic cam in the bed of his truck. So I believe that he did it. I want that connection. I want to know, why did he do it? Like, is there some message that they've not shown yet where he told him to do it? Was it an accident? Was he like thinking he was going to plant something in her house and she caught him? Like, I need that. I want them to connect that dot for me. So John Mello is out, free and clear, not arrested, and I'm wondering, did they give him a plea deal? Is he gonna be like the star witness? It's gonna wrap this all up in a nice, pretty bow? Is that why he's not in jail? Meanwhile, Brad Post, who is or was the fiance, he was the guy that found her and called the cops in the first place, is in jail. And the day the trial started, here I am all ready to go. And it starts, and then nothing for 2 hours. And so I'm just sitting here, just thinking of things to talk about for 2 hours. I'm like, what is happening? Now I'm just rambling and rambling and rambling. Well, it turns out they were doing a proffer of Brad Post because there's so much stuff they do not want the jury to know about this guy. But they needed him to testify because he found the body. Well, he was taking nudie pics of the daughter. And the deceased worked at, she was a veterinary tech at an animal hospital, and she fostered animals that were sick and needed a home. And they were taking pictures of the animals, doing things with the daughter. So he's in. They found, I forgot how many photos on 9 different devices. So he is in jail with 9 counts. I guess it's 1 count for every device. And they don't want the jury to know that. Which I get because it has no bearing on the murder case at all. I can see it being motive because I can get why John Mello would be very angry that somebody did that to his child. So I can see that being a motive. But I can also see why they don't want the jury to know about that. And the defense attorney is trying to get it in bad. Like, every time he gets a chance, when they start to talk about those pictures of the escort or any phone extractions of pictures, he tries to push. He's trying to, every witness that he can, he's trying to push to get them to say something. Yeah, absolutely. They're trying to push to get somebody to say something about the other pictures that they found. But like everybody knows, they're not allowed to talk about it. But he is trying. He's pushing. He's just pushing and pushing. They all know they're not supposed to say anything, and they're not. So he's not been able to get them in. He's trying to open that door. But yeah, that's disgusting. This woman has got horrible taste in men. I'm telling you. But apparently, she either knew about it or she was actually involved in it. I don't know which, but she's not the little innocent person that, I mean, I'm not trying to like blame the victim, but the only innocent person in this whole situation is a little girl who I think is like 13 now. And I don't remember who has her because her dad's not in jail. Her dad's like out free and clear, so I don't know. Just because, is she with her dad? Do you remember? He might not answer right away because he's at work while he watches. I know they did an emergency protective custody thing with her for a while. I don't think we're sure because she bounced around from, I think she went to her aunt for a while, and then they did the emergency protective custody where I think she went into foster care for a while. So I don't know where she is now. This poor kid. But they lived with, so Christina Parcel is the victim. Her sister's name is Tina. Oh, I watched, just because I watched Kathy Rumor, Gossip, and Innuendo's video about the day that Tina testified, and she goes, "Does anybody else think it's weird that they named 2 sisters Christina and Tina and they weren't twins?" I was like, yes, I've been saying that the whole time. Who names one daughter Christina and the other one Tina? It's basically the same name. But she said on the stand her name was Latina. So Latina and Christina still. So they lived, the sisters lived together, and they were taking care of the little girl. John Mello was still in Italy until after she died, and then he came back. So he has a rock solid alibi. He was in Italy. And the thing with WhatsApp, I guess, is like it's end-to-end encryption. So they used WhatsApp so nobody would know what they were telling each other. But the encryption's not that. And Kathy said the same thing about that. I'm watching her recaps like every morning because the day after each day of trial, she's putting a recap up. And she's hilarious. That woman has a way with words. I don't know why. I need my boom back. I don't remember what recovery addict explained Mike's one day on his channel. There's two different kinds. There's one that it's got like a sweet spot where you have to be right at the mic. Hey, Kelly. And then there's another one where it picks up like all ambient noise and everything, and you don't have to be right at it. Which the one where it's got a sweet spot's the best, because then you don't pick up a lot of background noise. And apparently that's the one I have. And I have a tendency to like want to do one of these numbers and then no one can hear me. But so when we got the new desk, I don't have like an edge to clamp my boom onto. And when I had the boom, I could like adjust it and have it wherever I was. So I miss my boom. Yeah, because I'm in the sweet spot now. Yeah, so I want to know. Well, so the WhatsApp encryption thing, Kathy said the same thing. When I heard encryption, I thought it was going to be like symbols or gobbledygook or something like that. But no, it's just the words are in a different order. So if you write, hey, girl, hey, it'll come out, hey, hey, girl. And I was like, yeah, I know, right? That's what I thought too. The ME is on the stand. It started, well, you missed yesterday too. It started with the investigator that was on the stand yesterday, who yesterday he was talking. Well, I have like a shelf here. I tried to connect the boom there, but because the wall is so close right here, it doesn't want to swing. It'll hit the wall. I mean, I could, but then I'd have to scoot way over, and then I'd have to rearrange my monitors and stuff. This is only temporary. I have a giant room. I mean, giant. Well, you'll see it when I finally get set up in there. If my stepdaughters will come and get their crap out of there. All of their childhood stuff and teenage stuff is all. Okay. Because I was on the table over there. So it hooked to the table perfectly. And I didn't even know that I needed one. I wanted a mic. I asked for a mic, and Travis got me a mic for Christmas, not this past year, but the year before. And I got this big box under the tree. And I was like, did you get me a soundboard? And he looked at me like, what's a soundboard? And I opened it up and I'm like, what the heck is this? I didn't even know what it was. And I was like, oh, it's a boom for my mic. Cool. He made sure he handed them to me in the right order so I wouldn't be totally confused. And then I remember thinking, you know, like you don't want to say the wrong thing when you're opening up a present, right? So I remember thinking, I don't know if I need this, but I didn't say it. But then once I got it all hooked up and everything, I loved it. And then I tried to hook it back to the desk and I was like, dang, it hits the wall. It's too close to the wall. So I don't remember where I put it when I took it down either. I know I didn't throw it away, but like we cleaned out because this was like a few years ago. My dog bit my hand. And I was in the hospital for 9 days and had 2 hand surgeries. So this whole corner back there, well, he left the vacuum out. I'm gonna beat him. So anyway, this full of medical supplies that we just never got rid of because I didn't know what to do with it. And so we got the new desk and we cleaned all that out and we made me like a little temporary studio because I got tired of sitting at the table. I was like, I need a real desk and a real place for real stuff because I got tired of waiting for the girls to come get their crap out of that room. So, I don't know what I did with that. And if I put it wherever we put all those medical supplies, I hope Travis didn't pick that up with it. I'm sure he wouldn't have thrown it away, but I don't know what we did with it. Oh, cool. See, I didn't run lights and sound. I was in the productions. I'm not a backstage person. I want to be in the spotlight. I hate when I see the judge's head and then nothing happens. I'm like, ooh, they're back, and then they're not. But yeah, I want to bit. This desk is not big enough, and I thought it was perfectly big. But then he got me a second monitor for Christmas, which I really, really wanted. So I wanted to put my printer on this desk, and he was like, "Oh no!" And I was like, "Okay, did you get me?" Yeah, I just saw the top of his head. I don't know why StreamYard is still giving me problems. Not as bad as they were before. I might have to go up on my new internet is way faster, but I might have to go up to the next speed because StreamYard is still not running totally smoothly. But at least I can keep my camera on now. Before I had to turn my camera off. So I've got ideas for my studio. I've got furniture picked out and things for the walls and curtains and it'll be gradual though because I can't afford to totally redecorate that room all at one time. Come on, StreamYard.
You want to stay calls garbage?
Come on, StreamYard. Come on, StreamYard.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes, thank you.
Oh, it did it. Duh.
Thank you. Please take your name for the record.
Hannah Burbage,
That's what I've got an HP on.
Ms. Burbage, with whom are you employed?
Greenville County Department of Public Safety.
And what do you do in the forensic DNA lab?
I'm an analyst.
And what is a DNA analyst?
So a DNA analyst, we examine items of evidence for profiles and then compare them to any reference provided.
Can you give us a little bit of your background and employment history and education?
I have a bachelor's in forensic science from Western Carolina University, and I have been employed here about 4.5 years.
And can you tell this jury more specifically, what are your duties and roles in the forensic DNA lab?
So before I became a DNA analyst, I started out as their serologist. So serology is basically examining items of evidence for suspected body fluids, such as blood, semen, and saliva, as well as we can kind of find out who might have worn an item or handled an item, and then taking samples forward for DNA analysis. And then once those samples go forward for DNA analysis, the analyst will perform analysis, get the profiles, compare them, and then we write up reports.
Okay. And where is all of this conducted?
At the DNA lab?
And is the DNA lab here in Greenville?
Yes.
All right. And how long has the DNA lab been in existence?
I believe it was opened in 2011.
And so when you get a sample that you want to be tested, tell this jury how that process works.
So an investigator has to request the DNA to be done. So they fill out a form and what evidence they would like processed. I then review any documentation for that particular case, such as incident reports, crime scene reports, as well as the DNA request and any evidence collected. Once I kind of have an idea of what evidence needs to be processed and what needs to be done on those items. So am I looking for suspected body fluids, or am I processing it in a different way? Then I will request evidence from our property and evidence section, which is the location that stores all evidence from crime scenes. They will then get the evidence together that I need. I will go to that location there at the law enforcement center, pick up the evidence from them, and bring it back to the DNA lab, which is a secure facility and accessed by key card only. Wear personal protective equipment, so lab coat, gloves, face mask. I clean my workbench as well as any tools I'm going to be using with 10% bleach. I process one item at a time, and I always start with evidence items before processing reference items.
And have you ever been qualified as an expert in serology before?
Yes.
How many times?
I believe about 6.
Your Honor, the state moves to qualify Hannah Burbage as an expert in serology.
No objection. No objection. Ladies and gentlemen, as I've said with other expert witnesses, this particular witness will be qualified in the area of serology to give an opinion in that area. However, that does not mean that you must accept the opinion, but it is evidence for you to use any way you see fit and give it the weight and credibility that you believe is appropriate.
Ms. Burbage, I'm going to ask you, were you asked to assist in the performances of various DNA analysis in the case of Zachary Hughes?
So I only performed serology for this case. I did not do any DNA analysis.
Okay. Did you perform, but you did perform serology in this particular case?
Yes.
And so how did you, what was the first, how did you know to perform serology in this particular case?
The investigator requested DNA evidence to be processed.
Okay. And how was that request made?
Through a form, a DNA analysis request form.
And how do you receive that form?
So we have a digital system that keeps track of all evidence that's in property and evidence that I have access to. And there's a staging location for evidence that's been requested for DNA. And I review those requests through that. And that's how I'm notified, or investigators can request to talk to us about cases.
And when you get this request for whatever particular item of DNA, what do you do?
So, as I said before, I review all documentation, including the incident report, crime scene reports, as well as the evidence list to kind of get an understanding of the case and what evidence is requested and how I would process the evidence that's requested.
And then do you physically go down to property and evidence and obtain that evidence, obtain it?
Yes,
And then what do you do with it once it's in your possession?
it's brought back to the DNA lab, which, as I said before, is a secure location.
I'm going to show you what's marked as state's exhibits 96 and 97. Ask if you recognize these.
Yes.
And on here, on state 97, is that your initials right there?
Yes.
And did you go to property and evidence and obtain these particular pieces of evidence?
Yes.
And what are they?
Case item number KF-AU1 became our item number 10, which is a sealed package containing buccal swab from Christina Parcel.
Okay. And so you said your item number 10. Explain to the jury how that happens.
So whenever we receive evidence, we label them.
She
just to
does
kind of
seem a
keep
tad
track in our
lethargic.
system of each item.
And so when you had the request to get the DNA and you went down to property and evidence, how did you do that?
So we drive to Property and Evidence, which is located at the Law Enforcement Center, and they will provide me with the evidence. It's usually scanned into my custody through our digital barcoding system, which is a digital chain of custody.
And once you receive the evidence, do you inspect it?
Once I'm back at the lab and ready to begin processing the evidence, I will be inspecting it.
And what are you inspecting it for?
To ensure that it's the correct items as well as everything is sealed and labeled properly.
Did you inspect these two particular items as well?
Yes.
And was there anything significant that you saw about whether they had been tampered with or not?
No.
Did you inspect them to see if they were properly sealed?
Yes.
And was there any issue that you noted on any reports regarding those samples?
I have no notes regarding any issues with the evidence.
If there was something that brought to your attention, would you note that?
Yes, I would document it as well as notify my supervisor immediately.
And would you be able to use it in testing if there was an issue or a contamination or an improper sealing?
Typically, we would not process anything that has not been sealed.
And were these two items sealed properly?
Yes.
Let's show you what's marked as State's Exhibit 11. Ask you if you recognize that.
Yes.
And is that your initials on there?
Yes.
And would that be when you retrieved it from Property and Evidence?
So typically when I label evidence, that is the day that I'm actually processing it. When I initially am going to open the evidence, I will label it with our lab number, our unique item number, my initials, and the date that I'm processing it.
And did you retrieve this evidence from Property and Evidence?
Yes.
You're agreeable?
Yes.
And when you retrieved it, did you notice any improper sealing or tampering with the item?
No.
And if you had, would you have put it in your notes?
Yes.
Let me show you State's Exhibit 100. Let me show you State's Exhibit 100. You can open that up. And before I ask you that, on the prior exhibit, did you make it a new DNA number, or a new DNA item?
Yes. So originally, case item number BW-A became our item number 11, which was a sealed package containing buccal swab from Michael Manigal.
All right, now I'm showing you State's Exhibit 100.
Okay. Case item number KF-N1 became our item number 12, a sealed package containing buccal swab from Zachary Hughes. This is the one that I processed.
So that would be what item number?
Originally, case item KF-N1 became our item 12. This is a second buccal swab, was labeled as a different item number,
What item number was that?
KF-N2.
Now, did you retrieve this from property and evidence?
Yes.
And when you retrieved it, how did you find it?
It was a sealed package containing buccal swab from Zachary Hughes.
Did you notice that had it been tampered with?
No.
Had there been any issue with the sealing that you noticed?
No.
So in your inspection, was it properly sealed?
Yes.
And where did you take the sample?
At the DNA lab.
I'll show you State's Exhibit 94 and 95. Ask if you recognize these.
Yes.
And what are these?
So case item number KF-AU9 became our item 2, which was a sealed package containing fingernail clippings from victim's right hand. And then case item number KF-AU10 became our number item 3, which was a sealed package containing fingernail clippings from victim's left hand.
Did you collect this from the Greenwood County Property and Evidence?
Yes.
And do you recall how, when you obtained these items, what condition they were in?
They were sealed.
Any issues with them being marked, open, contaminated, or anything like that?
No.
I'm gonna show you State's Exhibits 98 and 99. Show you to State's Exhibit 98 and 99.
Okay, I know what's that.
What are those?
I know what that's like. My
Excuse me.
printer goes down.
Case item number K-8, number 5, and it is a sealed package containing swab from right handle brake of black Kona bicycle. And then case item KF32B became our item number 6, a sealed package containing swab from left handle brake of black Kona bicycle.
And did you retrieve those from the Greenville County Property and Evidence here at Greenville?
Yes.
And did you notice any issues when you received it from DNA?
No,
Was there any tampering with these items?
they were sealed.
They were sealed properly.
Yes.
So once you get these items back to the DNA lab, what do you do with them?
So they are stored until I'm ready to begin processing. And then, as I said before, once I am ready to begin processing, I'll put on my PPE, clean my work area, and then open one item at a time for processing. Once I'm done taking either testing or taking samples from that item, I'll seal it back up and then move on to the next item. I work all evidence items first before references. Any samples that I take are given their own unique item number and barcode number to maintain chain of custody, and then those items are stored in the freezer until the DNA analyst is ready to begin processing.
Okay, so I'm referring you to your reference number 2A and 3A, clippings of right hand, which is 2A. What did you, testing did you perform on those? Or not testing, what, the right word? Did you take any swabs of it?
Yes, so for item 2, the fingernail clippings from the victim's right hand, observation revealed 4 pink fake nails. A swab of the tips of the fingernail clippings were taken for DNA analysis as item 2A. So the actual nails, I swabbed the tips of them, and then those swabs became item 2A, which were forwarded for DNA analysis.
And did you do that with your item 3A, the left hand?
Yes, so item 3, the fingernail clippings from the victim's left hand, observation revealed 5 pink fake nails, and a swab of the tips of the fingernail clippings were taken for DNA analysis as item 3A.
So tell this jury, so when you get these items out, how are you dressed in order to avoid contamination? And literally, what do you do?
I'm wearing a lab coat, a face mask, and gloves. I change my gloves frequently, as well as cleaning my surface area, any tools that I'm using, and I clean in between items and cases.
And then how do you swab these items?
Yep.
So for certain items, we're going to take a wet swab. So it's a swab. It looks like a Q-tip, kind of like a long Q-tip, and we will lightly wet it with deionized water, and then proceed to actually swab the areas that I'm intending to swab. And this helps pick up any skin cells that might be present in that particular area.
And did you swab the your 2A clippings of the right hand of the victim?
That's what I created, the swabs, item 2A.
And then where do you place that?
Hang on a minute.
They're placed in DNA freezer 1, which is where the DNA analyst will then pick them up from.
Don't remember my screen name.
And what about your items 5A and 6A, the handlebars of the bike, right and left side?
So item 5, the swab from the right handle brake of that. So I literally cut a portion of that swab, place that sample into a tube, and that gets labeled as item 5A and forwarded for DNA analysis. And then item 6, the swab from the left handle brake, I did the same thing. That gets taken a sample forward as item 6A.
in, did you put that in a secure storage location?
Yes, those would have been stored in DNA Freezer 1 as well.
Now, in regards to your, what I'll call them knowns, which would be your 10A, 11A, and 12A, 10A being the victim's known, Michael Manigault's known being your 11A, and Zachary Hughes's being your known 12A.
I lost my StreamYard.
How do you process the knowns?
So as I said before, the knowns are processed last because they're reference items. They're swabs, buccal swabs are swabs from the inside of your cheek. So they are direct references taken from a specific person, and that's compared to evidence items. So I was counting what time, since it's a swab, I'm taking a portion of the swab, putting it in a tube and labeling that as its own unique item number. So for item 10, buccal swab from Christina Parcel, a sample was taken for DNA analysis as item 10A. Item 11, a buccal swab from Michael Manigault, a sample was taken for DNA analysis as item 11A. And buccal swab from Zachary Hughes, which was originally item 12, a sample was taken for DNA analysis as item 12A. And then those would have been stored in the freezer as well.
So how do you take a sample?
I'm literally cutting the swab with scissors, clean scissors.
Now, is this done at a different time than the sort of the suspect, the unknown swabs?
Yes, the evidence items I'm processing first, and then reference items are processed last. So they're separated by time and space from the evidence items.
How much time is that?
Typically, it could be a few minutes to an hour. It just depends on when I'm actually processing the evidence.
And then in between, are y'all cleaning?
Yes, I clean in between each item.
Your state moves 96 and 97 in, 111, 100, 95, 94, 99, and 98.
Your Honor, I object to the introduction of all these exhibits pursuant to Rule 901. The state has failed to adequately establish a chain of custody, failed to authenticate it. That would be our objection.
Your objection's noted for the record.
He has done that for every lab item they've had.
Anything from the state?
Yes, Your Honor. We feel the chain under those cases has been met. All of the swabs were taken by witnesses that have already testified. They all testified they put it in the property and evidence. Ms. Burge just testified that she received it from property evidence in a good condition, non-contaminated condition, that she could use and be able to analyze.
And I think the state can. But your objection's noted for the record.
Thank you.
All right.
Why does he keep doing that? I don't understand.
Now, Ms. Burge, who actually did the DNA testing in this?
Tim Nofseeker.
All right. And would he have handled other items? Would he have gone and gotten other items from property and evidence?
I would have to refer to the chain of custody. Occasionally, I will pick up additional items later on for additional testing, but I don't actually open them and take samples. For instance, if reference items are submitted later on, I may pick them up from property and evidence with my other evidence, but the analyst can cut it and take it forward for analysis on their own, and the chain of custody would reflect this.
Do you recall taking any other pieces of evidence from property and evidence to the DNA lab?
I have about almost 30 items that I have processed for this case.
Can you check your notes? And did you take references to John Mello, Brad Post, and Alex Fields?
it make more sense to go pick it up, process it, test it yourself?
I did
Why
not
is it-
process those.
So you didn't cut the little ends and put it and have it ready for DNA on those 3?
No.
Yeah, but the chain of custody's been fine.
Your Honor.
They've
for-
shown
for,
chain of custody,
verifications, I've got states 96, 97,
and he's
111,
objected to every
100.
single one.
95, 94, 98, and 99. It's evidence. Okay, your objection.
Just to be clear, I'm sorry. So Mr. Wilkins references that those are already in evidence.
That's correct. I'm just crossing my T, double checking, those are the ones we discussed, and then we're putting it out.
For the record, make sure it is absolutely clear, 96, 97, 111, 100, 94, 95, 98, and 99 are all.
I mean, every time there's been a lab thing admitted, he has objected to chain of custody.
That's all the state has, Your Honor.
I'm starting to think there's something up that we don't know about.
No, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Your Honor, the state's calls Tim Massinger.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name for the record.
Timothy Knopfziger Jr.
Mr. Massinger, who are you employed?
I work for the Greenville County Department of Public Safety in the Forensic DNA Lab.
And what do you do for the forensic DNA?
I'm the DNA technical leader.
And what does that mean?
So I oversee the policies and procedures of the lab. I perform validations, and I also am a DNA analyst and work casework as well.
Are you in charge?
Yes, sir.
What is, do you get a special title or anything?
DNA technical leader, that's what it is.
So as the DNA technical leader, what are your main job duties?
So like I said, I oversee the policies and procedures of the lab. I perform validations. I oversee casework. I do casework myself.
How long have you been doing that?
I've been in that position about 1.5 years.
And how long have you worked at the lab?
I've worked at the lab for about 11.5 years.
Before that, were you in the DNA world?
This is my first job in forensic DNA.
Tell us a little bit about your background and history.
So I have a bachelor's degree in biological sciences from Clemson University, a master's degree in entomology from Auburn University. And when I was employed here, I started as a serologist, and I was trained in all the methods that we use in the lab. I also then was trained in DNA analysis methods, became a DNA analyst, and then eventually was promoted to DNA technical leader.
And tell us a little bit about the training that you go through.
So we do a system where we have mock evidence that we put, mock samples. There's a written exam. There are we do mock cases, and then we do a competency exam as well. Also, twice a year, we do proficiency testing, which are cases that are provided to us from an outside company that we don't know the answers to. We have to test them, give them back our answers, and they make sure we got the right answers.
About how many DNA samples have you tested?
From including my serology, I've worked several thousand items of evidence over my career.
And tell us a little bit about the lab. When was it established, and how did that happen?
So the lab first began working cases in 2011.
And to be established as a DNA lab, you have to get certified.
Yes, so we're an accredited lab. We're accredited through an organization called ANAB. We're under the standards, the ISO 17025 standards, and the FBI's quality assurance standards.
And are y'all reaccredited every year?
We undergo some level of an audit every year. Our full reaccreditation audits are every 4 years.
And are y'all currently accredited?
We are.
Always been accredited?
Yes.
And are there, we'll call them spot checks on where folks come in and kind of make sure you're doing everything correctly?
That's correct. We have, when we undergo an audit, these are outside people who come in and look at all our stuff. They look at our policies or procedures. They observe people working in the lab. They take a representative sample of cases and look through all our case files, our methods, our results to see if they can find any issues while comparing it with the standards that we have to follow.
And have y'all always got a good grade on all that?
Yes, we've passed every audit.
Now, did you do any prep work in this particular case?
With any case like this, typically we're having to look into the case details to determine what the best avenue of testing the evidence is, depending on the type of evidence, what we're looking for in a case.
Did you retrieve any items from the property and evidence for processing?
Most of the items I tested were prepared by our serologists in the lab. I did pick up 3 references.
All right. I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 101 and ask if you recognize this.
Yes.
What is this?
This is a buccal swab from John Mello.
And how did you obtain this item?
I would have received it from our property and evidence department.
And for the same way that Ms. Burbage just testified to?
That's right.
And when you obtained this item, how did it appear to you?
So whenever I pick up evidence items, I check the packaging, make sure everything is properly sealed and labeled, and it was.
Was there any tampering or any kind of cuts on the items before you took it back? And if there was, would you have noticed that?
I would have.
And would you have documented that?
I would have.
And would you have tested it otherwise?
Most likely not.
And what is this? What is John Mello's swab? Your reference number now?
So I gave it, our item number is item 27.
27. I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 10. It's already been admitted into evidence. Just get you to identify that.
Yes, this is a sealed package containing a buccal swab from Bradley Post. This is this one you've handed me is DHE1. The one I tested you handed me DH-E2. The one I tested was DH-E1.
Court, Your Honor. One of them got admitted into evidence.
We can take a quick break.
There it is, Your Honor. Got stuck over here. I'm gonna show you State's Exhibit 11.
Yes, I recognize this. This is our item 25, sealed package containing buccal swab from Post Bradley.
And did you collect this piece?
I obtained it at,
Retrieved it.
I got it from our property and evidence department.
And when you retrieved it, did you inspect it?
Yes, I did.
And was it properly sealed?
It was.
And if it wasn't properly sealed, would you have noticed that?
Yes, I would have.
And would you have noted that in your documents?
I would have.
And would you have tested it?
No.
And finally, State's Exhibit 181. You recognize this?
Yes, I do.
And what is that?
So this is a sealed package containing buccal swabs from Alex Fields, case item number JDS1.
And did you retrieve that from property and evidence?
I did.
And was it properly sealed?
Yes, it was.
Our state moves items 11, 181, and 101.
I would object to citing 901 related property damage changes.
Your objection is noted for the record. I overrule and consistent with the cases of Hatcher and the other cases which I've mentioned earlier, 11, 181, and 101.
You got Exhibit 11, correct?
11, 181, 101.
Thank you.
Are admitted into evidence.
All right, Mr. Nafsinger, I don't think I've moved to qualify you as an expert yet. Your Honor, I moved to qualify Mr. Nafsinger as an expert.
Your man inquires at what the field is.
In DNA analysis.
No objection.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, as I've said with other experts, this witness will be qualified to testify in the area of DNA analysis.
You're gonna say that every time?
However, it does not mean that you must accept the opinion, but it is an evidence for you to consider and use in any way you see fit and give it the weight and credibility that you feel is appropriate.
So, Mr. Nafsinger, tell us how you analyzed the items that you just referenced and the ones that in general, and that Ms. Burbidge referenced as well.
So there's 4 basic steps to the DNA analysis. So first is called extraction. We have to basically break the cells open and get the DNAs. And then we have to do a process called quantification, which is where we simply find out how much DNA is present in the sample. Then we do a process called amplification, which is where we make lots of copies of specific areas of DNA. And then we put those copies onto our genetic analyzer, which then produces a DNA profile. Then we have to interpret the DNA profile. DNA is a comparison science. The only way we can know whose DNA is present on an evidence item is if we have a known sample, such as a buccal swab, to compare to it.
Now, Ms. Burbidge testified about taking clippings and swabs. Are those the items that you tested? No.
Yes, they are.
All right. And so, and I'm just going to go over, tell this jury the knowns that you tested in your reference item.
So I did a total of 6 reference items. Item 10A was a sample of buccal swab from Christina Parcel. Item 11A was sample of buccal swab from Michael Manigault. Item 12A was sample of buccal swab from Zachary Hughes. Item 25 was a sealed package containing buccal swab from Bradley Post. Item 26 was a sealed package containing buccal swabs from Alex Fields. And item 27 was a sealed package containing buccal swab from John Mello.
All right, so tell us, what is a reference sample?
So a reference sample is just a known sample of somebody's DNA. That's so that we can compare the profile that we get from that reference sample to whatever we find on the evidence.
And then those reference numbers that I'm referring to, are those just the numbers that you refer to in your report?
Can
That's
everybody
right.
else
And then
hear?
you generate a report describing your findings?
That's right.
Everybody have sound? Carla, can you hear? Okay. Is the volume low or you can't hear at all? Because sometimes StreamYard will disconnect my audio for some reason, but so I've not gotten the message and I can hear it on my end, but sometimes I have sound and everybody's like, we can't hear it, we can't hear it. But so far I have not got the message that they got disconnected. So I don't know. It must be on your end, sweetie. Sorry.
And then what do you call the items that you're trying to see if there's DNA matching to them?
So we'll call those questioned items because we don't know what we're going to find on them when we go to test them.
All right. And so in this case, what question items did you compare to? Compare the reference items to?
Well, I did quite a few.
Yeah.
A lot of them.
So about how many items do you think that you tested in this particular case?
Let me check my report.
And you can give an estimation.
More than 20, it looks like.
And so I'm going to refer you to your reference items 2A and 5A and 6A. Can you tell the jury what those items are?
So item 5A is black Kona bicycle. And item 6A is sample of swab from left handle brake of black Kona bicycle.
And so just to give another general description, in the lab, you've got, and this is 5A and 6A, the swabs of the black Kona bicycle. It is just a clipping of that swab that you're using.
That's correct.
And that is the swab that that Hannah Burbidge process or prepared for you.
That's correct.
All right, and where did you get that swab from?
I got it from DNA Freezer 1 in the DNA lab.
And is that a secure location?
It is. The entire DNA lab is secure with only key card access, only accessible by the people who work there, and there's an alarm system. So.
And what measures do you instill to make sure that there's no cross-contamination from the reference samples?
So when I'm doing my extractions, the questioned items are extracted at a separate time and space than the known samples. So when I'm handling the questioned items, I have not handled any of the reference items yet. And so anytime I'm doing my processes manually, I'm only having one tube open at a time, and I'm only working question items, and then later I work the reference items. Later on, some of our processes involve robotics, and all our robotics have passed extensive validation tests that have also been audited when we get audited. And a part of those validation processes are contamination assessments, where we basically set it up to try to force it to contaminate and set up where we would very easily see if it did, and they've always passed. So
And so do y'all have sort of safety measurements in place inside the lab to make sure there's no contamination or other issues arising out of the testing?
Yes. So in addition to those precautions, I'm obviously wearing protective equipment. So I've got a mask, gloves, a lab coat, change my gloves frequently. We also work with controls. So with every extraction batch, I have what's basically called a reagent blank, which is just an empty tube that I do everything to it, the same thing I'm doing to all the other samples, and I run it just like all the other samples to see if anything shows up in there, because we would see it if some DNA is being transferred between samples.
And do y'all have a peer review system?
We do.
And how does that work?
So we do 2 reviews. We have a technical review and an administrative review, and the main point of the review is another.
I have a theory. I could be totally wrong, but I don't think I've ever seen the person that's like the supervisor of quality control or whatever he is testify at a trial about how they test for mistakes and stuff. And the defense attorney keeps objecting to all the chain of custody stuff with the lab people. And he didn't make an opening statement. He wanted to wait until the state was done. I'm wondering if there was some mistake that the lab made that we don't know about yet that he is wanting to pounce on. I just have a really weird feeling that there's something happened that we don't know about. I have a really weird feeling about something that happened in the lab. Because so far, chain of custody has been established. I don't see a problem with chain of custody. And every time someone from the lab has testified, the defense attorney has jumped up and objected to chain of custody. I want to know, something is going on, y'all. I want to know what happened.
Analyst who's fully qualified to do the same processes that I did, goes through and looks at all of my data, essentially reinterprets everything, make sure they agree with all my conclusions, that they don't find any issues with what I did, and no report is released until it passes review.
So in reference to 5A handlebar, right handlebar conobite, in reference to 6A left handlebar of the conobite, did you compare that swab to your nose in this particular case?
I did.
And what was your conclusions of that?
So for item 5A, which was a sample of swab from right handle brake of black Kona bicycle, my findings were the DNA obtained from item 5A is a mixture of a major male individual and at least one trace contributor. The major contributor may result of item 5A and the DNA of Zachary Hughes is approximately 2 septillion times more likely than a coincidental match to a random unrelated individual. Upon establishing Zachary Hughes as a contributor to this mixture based on the match statistics, Michael Manigault, Bradley Post, Alex Fields, and John Mello are excluded as contributors to the DNA obtained from item 5A. Due to limited data of the remaining alleles, there is no statistical support for an inclusion or exclusion between item 5A and Christina Parcel.
So what does that last part mean, inclusion or exclusion of Christina Parcel?
It basically means no conclusive determination can be made for this individual.
So now I'm going to refer you to your items hand of Christina Parcel. Did you have the
StreamYard, you're not supposed to do this anymore. I thought we made an arrangement when I got the new internet.
Dealing with are literally swabs. They're very tiny.
That's right.
All right. And so, did you have the occasion to test the clippings from Christina Parcel's right hand, which is your reference item 2A, to the knowns?
Yes, I did. So for item 5A, or I'm sorry, for item 2A, swab of tips of fingernail clippings from victim's right hand. My findings
Your
were,
Honor, and I'm going to object pursuant to Rule 403. It's our position that says no affirmative value based on their inability to properly establish chain pursuant to 901.
Your objection is noted for the record.
Good again. So
And
did
just for the record, I find that Rule 403 is extremely probative and substantially outweighs any unfair prejudice. That your objection is noted on the record.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I'll refer you back to clippings of the right hand 2A.
yes.
And compared to our known references there.
So the DNA obtained from item 2A is a mixture of at least two individuals, a major female and a minor male. Assuming Christina Parcel is the major contributor to this mixture based on this being an intimate sample, a match between the minor DNA result of item 2A and the DNA of Zachary Hughes is approximately 825 million times more likely than a coincidental match to a random unrelated individual. Michael Manigault, Bradley Post, Alex Fields, and John Mello are excluded as contributors to the DNA obtained from item 2A.
So did you just tell this jury that Zachary Hughes's DNA is 825 million times more likely than a coincidental match to a random unrelated individual located under Christina Parcel's fingernails?
So what that stat means is it's called a likelihood ratio. And basically we're looking at two hypotheses as an explanation for the evidence profile that we find in the sample. So for every comparison, and we compared all the people to it, for every comparison, the first hypothesis
family just because it's right. I don't know what's happening. Man.
Okay. Start. Thank you, sir. Can you step down?
I can't believe he didn't cross the guy. I figured with the way he was jumping up and objecting to all the other chain of custody stuff. That's the guy that was in charge of all the quality control things. I cannot imagine being a process server in this day and age. Okay, I'm going to turn my camera off because I keep getting the page not responding message. I don't get it. I've got way faster internet now than I did before, and it's still doing the same kind of crap. Just not as often. It was good. It's been good. They've been going to lunch around 1. They start at 9:30, but it's on a half-hour delay because they don't want any of the pictures shown because they're compromising pictures of her. And then there's the inappropriate pictures of children, but those aren't allowed. So they've been breaking from lunch around 1, coming back at 2, so then
Anything further from the state?
it's not screened until 2:30.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I've got a surprise for you, a Valentine's Day surprise. We are going to stop for the day.
What?
And I'm going to release y'all. I'm going to ask that you return Tuesday morning. We do have Monday off. Again, I need to just go over this with you. Obviously, there is media coverage in this case, and you are prohibited from watching any TV coverage over this extended weekend of this trial. You should not do any research, go on the internet, look up anybody that's involved in this case. If you have notifications, as I've previously told you, I would really disrespectfully ask that you cut those off. As I've told you before, and I asked you yesterday, I will be randomly asking if you have seen anything, heard anything. And again, it is just to, it's so important to the integrity of this trial and justice and fairness to the defense and the state. And that you only consider evidence that comes in through this courtroom. You're not to discuss this case among yourselves or begin any type of deliberation whatsoever until I instruct you that you can begin those deliberations. Do not discuss this with family members, spouses, friends until after your jury service is completed. And if anyone approaches you to talk about this case at any time, I need for you to inform me immediately. Okay? I hope y'all have a nice extended weekend, and I thank you on behalf of Greenville County and the state of South Carolina for your service and your attentiveness in this trial.
Yeah, I do want to know about that because they The defense wants it in bad. They want it in bad. So, man, I was like, when he first started talking, I was like, great, now we gotta wait till after lunch. No, we have to wait till Tuesday. I want to hear defense opening so bad. So bad. Usually, I mean, we already know more than the jury, right? But usually we know way more than the jury. Like, we know stuff, but there's something going on that we don't know this time. There's something happened with the lab. Had to have happened. Had to have happened. Unless there's some, like, I didn't know anything about this case. So maybe there's something that way back. Because see, Kathy from Rumor, Gossip, and Innuendo, she's known about this case, I guess, since back when it happened. She's got a playlist. When I started watching her videos on day one, I watched her the morning the trial started. When I saw that there was a new trial starting, I watched she was like Zachary Hughes day one. And so I watched it because I didn't know anything about the trial. And she said, I have a whole playlist on this case. I've been waiting I think she said 2 years. So she has a playlist already. Videos about, I guess, like the prelim hearings and stuff. So I need to go back. She's like, if you watch it on 2x speed, you have plenty of time to watch the whole playlist before the trial starts this morning. But I didn't. So I need to go back. The fiance's already testified. He testified on the first day. And the trial started with, they hadn't brought the jury in, but they started streaming the trial. Like, the judge was there, Zachary Hughes was there, the lawyers was there. Like, the trial was fixing to start. You know, the judge came in, introduced himself, all that stuff. Jury wasn't there. Lawyers started talking to the judge, and then they decided that they were gonna proffer him. They brought him in, cameras are on, and then they shut the cameras up. Well, no, they showed the state seal for like 2 hours. And I sat here and just talked because I didn't know what was going on. If I'd known that it was going to be nothing for 2 hours, hey, we're done for the day. Unfortunately, he let them go early today. So if I know, yeah, we don't want to chase that Rocky. So if I'd known that they weren't going to show any of it, because usually they show that stuff, but I think that the judge is being very, very cautious because they don't want any of the child picture stuff getting leaked to the jury. So the jury saw him for part of that? Oh my gosh. Okay, yeah. I do. I need to go watch that then. Because I just sat here and talked for 2 hours, and then I was like, you know what? So when the jury finally came in, I was like, I'm going to start a new stream. Because all I've done is sat here and just chit-chatted with people for 2 freaking hours waiting for it to start. And then when they did bring him in, the defense asked him something about, how close were you? Well, they asked, how old was the daughter when you met her, or when you got back together with the deceased, and did you get to know her really well, or something like that? Or how was your relationship with her? I don't know. Some questions about his relationship with the daughter. And then after he left the stand, I can't remember if the jury was still there or not, but he stood up, and for the record, he said that he felt like he should have been able to ask him more about his relationship with the daughter, because he opened the door by saying he had a very good relation with the daughter or something like that. And the judge just said, okay, it's noted for the record. Like, and every time they ask about a phone dump or anything, he's tiptoeing around it. He's dancing around it like he wants them to open the door so he can get it in. He's trying his hardest. So this is such a weird trial. So there's got to be a reason why the defense wants that to come in. Like, I guess they're wanting to say that was the motive for the murder or something. It doesn't make it not murder because there was a motive. So yeah, I need to go back and watch that. Yeah. Okay, so Tuesday morning, the stream won't start. It starts at 9:30. Stream won't start till 10, so I'll start at 10 when they do. So I will see you then. And I might do, I don't know. I didn't know the trial was going to be this week, so I had a bunch of Shanna Gardner stuff planned. So I might do some of that this weekend. Maybe Monday, since they're not going to have court Monday. I don't know. Depends on how I feel. I felt awful yesterday. I feel much better today. So depends on the weekend and what my husband has planned too. So I don't know. So just make sure that you guys are subscribed and you have the bell clicked and all that good stuff. And don't forget to like the video before you leave. And I love you guys, and I will see you later. Bye. Oh, that's okay. All right, you can be on replay crew. Bye, guys.